I'm Tom, and this is Adult Game Reviews. Welcome to my second ever sponsored review. This week I tackle A Wife and Mother by LNP. I had a fan of AWAM who wanted to do a sponsored review because the dev ran into some unfortunate issues with Patreon. They wanted to stay anonymous, so I want to say thank you for bringing this week's review ad-free. As per usual, it doesn't matter if the review is sponsored or not. I will be honest.
Trust.
By the way, you can play A Wife and Mother on Windows, Mac, and Linux. It's available on AWAM's Subscribestar. Check the link tree in the description for the link. With all that out of the way, let's discuss A Wife and Mother. After covering 10 games with a female MC, I thought AWAM showed up at the right time. I think the last female MC game that I reviewed was Good Girl Gone Bad, so it's time for another. First, let's get into the premise. You played 38-year-old Sophia, who moved back to their nondescript European hometown with her husband, daughter, and son after your husband got a great job. You are a school teacher at the local high school and work part-time at the old folks home, and this is your life. This game really puts the I in family.
You don't turn your back on family.
So, a heads up, there are no patches, no stepsister and landladies here, just pure
Family.
AWAM really reminds me of The Dark Knight, not for the content, but certain themes. It also reminds me of games like Trouble at Home or Summer's Gone, just in the fact that it's one of the most slice-of-life VNs I've ever played, and in some ways, this was good, and in others, it was problematic. Before we get into that, please like the video if you like it, and subscribe if you aren't. First, a little context. The game was initially released in 2017. There are 21 days released, with each update containing one scene. These days can be very long. I would say average day, depending on choices, will likely take you about an hour. This means each individual update can vary in length, and in some days have a lot of possible scenes. So more on this in the story section. So let's move on to renders. The beginning of the game has the 2017 kind of renders, which for the time would have been amazing. Even now you can see the renders aren't bad, but I wouldn't exactly call them groundbreaking. They're fairly average, and they do improve as the days move on, but I think they just toe the average range for visuals all along the way. There are some animations when you get to later chapters, but it's mostly static renders early on. Besides the MC looking like Melania, they're decent in my opinion.
No, I'm saying they look exactly alike.
Moving on to audio, there is sporadic music and sound effects throughout. I may have been imagining it, but in later chapters I noticed the music more, which in general was a good thing. Unfortunately, neither is very consistent, but at least it's not completely silent. The draw here is the story, and its very specific niche. First, when I say this is a slice of life, I really mean slice of life. So what does that mean? Well, out of the 21 days, you really go through the morning, noon, afternoon, and nighttime. You get up every day, eat, shower, and head to work. Sometimes you get your hair done, and other times you go to the spa. Like many slice of life VNs, this is a slow burn, but especially in the first 4 days, nothing is left out. Which was interesting to see the MC go through her day-to-day, but if you don't care about the mundane aspects of that, then the VN will feel very slow.
Just chilling in my awesome bubble bath.
I would say the first 4 days are set up, and things don't really get going until after that. You have two possible paths you can go down, with some minor ones here and there that I'm not going to mention. The first one is the faithful, loving wife path to your overworked and semi-neglectful husband Liam. The second one you can loosen up over time. This leads to you doing things you never thought possible. I'll say it, the faithful path is pretty boring.
Being a good person is overrated.
However, the other path is much more interesting. You know The Dark Knight, where Harvey Dent is slowly corrupted over time?
You either die a hero, or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
Yep, this pretty much exactly explains what happens to Sophia in the other path. And virtually everyone in the game contributes to this. There are so many tropes that it would take too long to mention them all, but everything from helping your son from being picked on at school, to mob bosses, and the lonely wife trope, and many, many more. Personally, I wasn't interested in some of the relationships or tropes, so I avoided those. But one thing AWAM does really well is allow for personal choice. I said yes to virtually everything except for certain paths that made me a little uncomfortable.
I don't have friends. I got family.
The writing is mostly well done. There's a lot of dialogue, and with the exception of the stray awkward word or sentence here and there, it was pretty good. There were some sweet moments to stressful moments, and others that were very, very boring. AWAM really tries to find something everyone will be interested in. Going to the club and listening to What Is Love cracked me up.
It works every time.
Yeah, I know.
And running into the toughest man in the world outside the gas station was a fun surprise. However, I did notice some strange inconsistencies here and there. Like, for instance, Liam sits down and watches a football game, which I was surprised that it was American football, but he wears a Raiders jersey and watches a Jaguars and Patriots game. Or how your husband works in fashion, as in the line to be the CEO of the company, but is helping individual women with their dress fittings. There are just some weird things here and there, so you do have to suspend some disbelief with the story. It's really focused on Sophia and her particular journey. There are scenes where you play as your husband, son, or daughter, which I loved overall, but most of the time you are Sophia. Now, quickly on the mechanics. Don't click off. I'm not going to go through everything. I do have to say that the VN does have a point-based threshold system, so you have to have certain amount of points in all the relationships to see certain scenes or unlock certain content. I found myself yourself missing out on one path because of early choices. I get it. If this game didn't have a rigid point-based system, the game would be too complicated to function. The nice thing is there is a gallery that will let you unlock the scenes you missed, so it doesn't require another playthrough, unless you want to. Let's talk about the spicy content. This game is one gigantic tease. After day 4, you get quite a few different scenes, but no full spicy content, if you know what I mean. Don't get me wrong, some can be very fun, but the full spicy scenes are rare. So what do I think? Well, if you like slow burn, slice of life female MCVNs with heavy, then you will likely enjoy this VN. If this doesn't bother you, there's something here for everyone. How much of it is for you? Well, that's the hard question. I thought the VN was decent. Some paths I really enjoyed and others not so much. This just highlights that your personal enjoyment of A Wife and Mother is really based on how many of the themes you're into. So if you want more info on all the possible themes, you can pop on over to the AGR Discord and we can help you out, or you can check out AWAM on Subscribestar. I want to thank AWAM Fan for sponsoring the video. I also want to thank all my backers on Patreon and Subscribestar. If you haven't seen my video on 5 very long VNs you may enjoy, you can check that out right here. Thanks again. Until next time.